nation, your province, your southern Alberta. From the heart of Lethbridge, it's Bridge City News Weekend Edition with Jeanette Roche.
Hello, thanks for joining us for this Week in Review. Alberta's United Conservative Party has decided to make a major change for Premier Jason Kenney's leadership review on April 9th that would see ballots switched to mail-in only. Opponents of Kenney are not pleased with this change. As BCN's Micah Quinn explains, UCP MLA Brian Jean called the decision a travesty.
Throughout the past weekend, we heard from organizers in certain communities that Jason Kenney was signing up thousands of members in Edmonton and Calgary who never paid for their memberships.
That comment from Brian Jean, who is the UCP MLA for Fort McMurray Lac-La-Biche, comes after the UCP board decided to flip the switch on the upcoming leadership review to mail-in ballots instead of the in-person review being held in Red Deer on April 9th. Jean called the decision unethical and a violation of Alberta law.
The party board has now decided that the party rules don't matter. The Societies Act, which governs our party, doesn't matter. And the rights of UCP members to have a process that is fair and honest does not matter.
UCP President Cynthia Moore says the decision to switch to mail-in ballots comes after UCP membership climbed to more than 15,000, and the virtual switch will make it easier for members to vote. The leader of the NDP, Rachel Notley, was in Lethbridge on Thursday afternoon and said switching to mail-in ballots shows the drama and infighting within the party.
Yesterday we had new information about what was going on with the UCP fight. Today we have more new information about what's going on with the UCP fight. I'm sure tomorrow we'll have even more. The fundamental lesson that all of this teaches Albertans is that they cannot trust this UCP government to make decisions in the best interests of Albertans.
Premier Jason Kenney says he would be happy with 50 plus 1% support if he is to win the leadership review on April 9th.
And I'm confident that I'll receive a endorsement. Now, obviously, there are some people that are angry about everything related to COVID, who are angry about the need to have public health measures to protect a catastrophe in our hospitals. Some people who are against vaccines, and they want to have their say, and they will, but I think the vast majority of mainstream conservatives will want stability, continuity, and unity.
Kenney will have to receive more than 50% of the vote in the leadership review on April 9th, and if he doesn't, a leadership race for the premier seat will be called. For Bridge City News, I'm Micah Quinn.
Presidents of 6 UCP constituency associations, along with a number of MLAs, were at the legislature Thursday demanding Premier Jason Kenney resign. UCP MLAs Angela Pitt, Dave Hansen, and Peter Guthrie were joined by former UCP MLAs Todd Lowen and Drew Barnes. Barnes says the gathering was sparked by the party announcement, which said the April 9th review of Kenney's leadership will now be done by mail-in ballot instead of in-person voting.
Premier Kenney had already lost the trust of Albertans. Now he's completely eroded the trust of UCP members. Changing the rules in the middle of the game is not the way Albertans, value honesty and integrity. And Premier Kenney has taken huge steps back to protect himself rather than build a strong Alberta. I loved what the CA president said today. They gave the provincial board 5 days to reinstate April 9th and all the votes and all the rules. And it's clear to me that they should do that because that's the rules that were set. And it's clear to me that that will be the last day of Premier Kenney's leadership, April 9th.
Lethbridge West MLA Shannon Phillips had her latest appeal against the Lethbridge Police Service denied by the Law Enforcement Review Board. Ms. Phillips filed the appeal when she was unhappy with the disciplinary decision to demote 2 police officers who spied on her in a Lethbridge diner back in April of 2017. One of the officers took photos of her dining and then posted them to social media. At the time, Phillips had been the province's environment minister under an NDP government, and the officers were allegedly unhappy with her decision to ban off-road vehicles in the Castle area of southern Alberta's Rocky Mountains. The 2 officers faced disciplinary hearings in 2020 and received demotions for 2 years, but Phillips wasn't happy with that decision and filed an appeal. The board, however, dismissed it. We caught up with Shannon Phillips, who says she's looking at her options.
We received that decision early last week, and we are examining our appeal options to the Alberta Court of Appeal.
Meanwhile, I spoke with Lethbridge Police Association President Jay McMillan about the decision, and here's what he had to say.
We thought that this was done. We thought that this was concluded after the disciplinary decision in July 2020. But she made application for an appeal based on 15 points of contention. And it's nice now, as a result of the LERB hearing, to know that those 15 points of contention were essentially dismissed as being without merit. All 15, I should add.
We need to take a quick break. When we come back, we have an exclusive interview with Alberta Premier Jason Kenney. If you're watching on YouTube, please give us a like and subscribe. Keep it right here. Welcome back. Earlier this week, Hal Roberts sat down with Alberta Premier Jason Kenney. Today, we start with the Premier reacting to the so-called grassroots movement to remove him as leader. Take a look.
There is a grassroots movement called Take Back Alberta. It's a group led by David Parker, who used to be on your campaign team, I believe, back in 2017. And he says he wants you out as leader. Is this just sour grapes? What do you feel really led to this point?
Yeah, I think that there's a couple of things, Hal. First of all, even at the height of his popularity, Ralph Klein would have 20% of the members voting to review him have a leadership election. So at any time, any leader is going to have some people in a political party who are disenchanted because of whatever. They didn't get the appointment, the job they wanted, or the funding, or there's always some of that. It's a natural part of a party, of a democracy. But what's different now is frankly COVID, and I think there are some people who were on the letter rip side of the debate who were very angry about any public health measures. I understand their frustration. I'm a freedom-loving Alberta conservative. It was painful for me as a leader to conclude at various times that we had to bring in certain measures to prevent a total catastrophe in our healthcare system. But Hal, my job is not to pander to one faction of my political party. When you're elected to a position like mine, you have an overarching and very serious responsibility to govern for the common good. And I'm the kind of conservative who believes that radical personal autonomy is not the only political value. I'm a pro-life Christian, and I believe that the sanctity of human life, for me at least, is a central value. That caring for the poor and the vulnerable is an essential Christian and I think Alberta value. And also, as a government that has responsibility for the healthcare system, we could not responsibly allow ourselves to be in a situation where we would be pulling life support on people in intensive care, denying care to others, canceling almost all surgeries, and medevacing critical care patients to Toronto. We were within about 10 days of having to do all of that in September. So Hal, I guess I would say this. There are some people who are frustrated about all of that. I get it. There's also people, and I'll be blunt with you about this. There are people who are, in Alberta, we've always had a hard right on the margins. And even in Ralph Klein and Peter Lougheed's day, they would have one or two marginal right parties that would get 5 to 10% of the vote. The people who are perennially angry, and they have a lot of reasons to be angry over COVID. And some of those are people that we would not let run for us. I screened out about 35 applicants to be Conservative candidates in the last election because of extremism. One of the guys running around at those meetings to which you referred, Mr. Beasley from Brooks, wrote on Facebook that Islam is a death cult and that the Mongols should have snuffed out the Muslims when they had the chance. So we have people with views like that who do not fit into, I'll be blunt with you, Hal, they do not fit into a mainstream Conservative party. And some of them are trying to use this leadership review to destabilize this mainstream party. But I'm not going to give in to that because if this becomes some kind of marginal, hard right party that tolerates intolerance of and hateful views of that nature, then it does not reflect Alberta views. It certainly doesn't reflect my values, and it would be completely unelectable. So yeah, I am going to defend this as a big tent mainstream party, and I will defend the necessity to have brought in COVID measures to prevent a total humanitarian catastrophe in our hospitals.
Now, Brian Jean, who recently won the by-election of Fort McMurray-Lac-La-Biche, is back in the fold, and he says he's really gunning for your job. Let me ask you something, Premier Kenney. How soon until you punt Brian Jean out of caucus?
Well, the way our caucus governs caucus conduct, and I think that we acknowledge that between now and the decision of the members in the leadership review vote, there's going to be some different views expressed about leadership and about the future of the party. And I hope people recognize just how accepting I have been of different views within our caucus and within our party. We've been, in fact, the single greatest criticism I get from our members is that I've been too tolerant of that we need to get our act together, be disciplined, united, and focused, and not allow for constant internal divisions and distractions. Now, having said that, we have this leadership review process, but once the members make the decision, I will accept it. If the members say they want to move on and choose a new leader, I will accept that immediately and enthusiastically. And I certainly expect that Mr. Jean and others who want a change of leadership would do the same if there's an endorsement of my leadership. So we'll let the members decide.
After the break, Dave Naylor of the Western Standard joins me to break down some of what you heard in the interview with Jason Kenney. Keep it right here. Welcome back. Dave Naylor, editor of the Western Standard, knows his stuff and is sure to tell it like he sees it. Today, we talk about the resistance to Jason Kenney and why that resistance exists. Is the Wild Rose and Independence the solution? Do you think that it would be a good idea for Jason Kenney to maybe bring Drew Barnes and Todd Loewen back into the caucus?
Well, it's not going to happen as long as Jason Kenney is the leader. Loewen sort of started the open revolt by posting a letter on Facebook saying, Kenney must go. Drew Barnes has been a constant side in Kenney's constant thorn in Kenney's side since the party was elected. So I don't see them going back into the UCP caucus. If Kenney loses and whoever else takes over the leadership can make that decision, I guess, or Todd and Drew can sort of make peace offerings if they like.
Mm-hmm. Do you think Jason Kenney deserves to be replaced?
Well, I mean, he's going around the province now saying Alberta's back, prices are booming, companies are coming here. But I don't know if he's got the ability to get people over their anger. They're angry at the COVID lockdowns, the repeated back and forth. The Jason Kenney who says, I'll never bring in a vaccine passport, to the Jason Kenney who says, well, here's my vaccine passport. So UCP members are just so disappointed. He was elected and everybody thought he was going to do great things. The Fair Deal panel turned out to be a fiasco. All they've done is set up boards and more studies. And no matter what they do, the NDP is holding a commanding lead. So the only way that the UCP has a chance of defeating Rachel Notley, and we're only a year away from the next election, right, Jeanette? So the only way the UCP has a chance is if they replace Kenney. I don't see them winning at all if he stays.
Mm-hmm. I know you mentioned the NDP, of course. So the NDP seems to have hopes for that no confidence vote on the budget. Rumor has it that they're hoping for the support of 18 members to show that caucus has lost confidence in their leaders. So what do you make of that?
Well, I mean, it remains to be seen until the vote is called or the vote is taken. It's just growing. It's splitting the party apart. Jason Kenney, in his actions right now, is going to destroy the UCP. It's coming apart at the seams as we speak. We can all see it happening on a daily basis. The crisis is just getting worse. I don't really understand why Kenney cannot see the writing on the wall and take a graceful exit and say, all right, well, you can either resign or you can say, okay, let's have a leadership contest and I'm going to run. And again, you've got to remember that he's very formidable on the ground. So that may be an option for him. He may even call that before the vote is to take place. And he could just say, okay, that's it. I've heard you guys want a leadership review. Let's do it. I'm in it and I'm going to win it.
What kind of future is there for the UCP if Kenney stays on as leader? I mean, you're kind of alluding to the fact that there is no future.
Well, I mean, I don't think there is. I mean, right now, you look at Calgary. Calgary's been conservative country for decades, and the NDP could sweep this city in the next election. All the polls say they're leading everywhere, including in Kenney's riding. The NDP will sweep Edmonton. It's only rural areas where the UCP is polling anywhere half decently, and of course they've got the Wild Rose Independence Party nipping at their heels. And depending on who you talk to, Wild Rose has got support of 15%, 20% of rural voters. So in the election, they become a real threat too to split the right vote and possibly even get themselves an MLA or two.
What was your take on those results of that Fort McMurray Wood Buffalo by-election?
I think it just shows you how popular Brian Jean is in Fort McMurray. I think there was a combination of that. I think there was a combination of an anti-Kenney vote there. But keep in mind, Brian Jean's been elected up there for, as federal MP, as a provincial MLA. He's well-known. He's a local boy. The Wild Rose Independence Party, they dropped in their leader, Paul Hidman, and he didn't do very well, getting only about 10% of the vote.
Coming up after the break, Albertans are currently in Ukraine helping the locals save lives lost amongst the rubble. Keep it right here. Welcome back. 6 Alberta men recently dropped everything to put their lives on the line and help with search and rescue missions in Ukraine. These brave men are part of a volunteer organization called the Canadian International Rescue Organization, or CIRO, which is a non-profit, non-government organization. The men, mainly from central Alberta, range in age from 23 to 61. I caught up with the organization's public information officer, Chad Reed, who says the group is helping to train others in rescue techniques and even brought specialized search equipment with them, which they plan to leave in Ukraine when they return. Take a look. So how did this come about, Chad? Was it someone in Ukraine who reached out, or did you guys as a group decide, hey, we got to be there?
Our team leader reached out to the Ukraine consulate in Edmonton and told them that we have a small team, we have equipment, specialized equipment for this type of work, and if they would request our help, we would be there. And they said, yes, please.
And what type of training do these guys have? Are they military trained?
Some of our members do have military training, and a lot of us have higher levels of medical training as well.
So tell me about what these guys have been seeing, this team on the ground over there, and how long have they been over there?
We're going on right around 3 weeks. The team has been boots on the ground. There a lot of the photos and information that we get back is a lot of it is the buildings that have been hit by rockets or missiles, and from the distance from where they're actually sheltered right now, they've been able to see actually live munitions go off and blowing stuff up fairly nearby, like kilometers away, but still you can see the plumes in the sky.
Have they been able to relay any stories to you in terms of how many people they've been able to rescue?
Yeah, right now, so our count, and this was a couple of days ago, but we had 3 complete rubble piles that the team had gone through, and out of that, a couple of casualties were located and recovered from the rubble piles live. So that's excellent news. And then our combat medic happened to be near one of the Ukrainian soldiers that was injured, and was able to attend to the soldier and get him patched up. So it was great to have him there.
That's incredible. And I understand your team has some specialized equipment that's enabling them to conduct these rescues. Can you maybe talk a little bit about that?
We use cameras, specialized cameras, and listening devices for what we call technical search in an urban search and rescue environment. So collapsed structures, rubble piles, basically what we're seeing now. And so these cameras are telescopic, so we're able to extend them down into confined spaces as far as the telescope will, we can converse through the camera as well as see what's going on. So it's lit up. We can get a 360-degree view of what's going on in that space. And if we are able to make contact, they can talk back through the camera, and we can have live footage of what's going on in that space. I'm sure you can imagine that somebody in a confined space like this, and now they're able to get communication, would be staggering. We also have audio equipment where it's basically sensors that we can place on a rubble pile, and then we can try and make contact with anyone in the spaces and essentially ask them to call out or knock on something or scratch, whatever they can do to allow us to be able to pinpoint.
That sounds amazing, and like a godsend to anyone who would be trapped beneath the rubble and in a confined space like that. That's got to be anybody's worst nightmare.
It's just hard to fathom, honestly.
And finally, Chad, how can people help your team?
We have a Canada Helps. CanadaHelps.org is a website, and if they search Canadian International Rescue Organization, it's a direct influx of money for our team.
Chad, thanks so much for your time today. It's really amazing what your guys are doing over there. Our prayers are with your team. Coming up after the break, BCN's Nathan Ryder filed a report on how the University of Lethbridge faculty members are saying their strike was precedent-setting and what it could mean for labor relations in the future. Welcome back. After weeks on the picket line, the University of Lethbridge Faculty Association and the university's Board of Governors have reached an agreement. As BCN's Nathan Ryder reports, faculty members say the strike was precedent-setting.
The spring semester at the University of Lethbridge is now set to continue after a near 6-week stoppage. Members of the University of Lethbridge Faculty Association and the Board of Governors ratified the agreement Monday night. 92% of ULFA members voted, with 91% voting in favor of ratification. President of the Faculty Association, Dan O'Donnell, says the length of the strike is unprecedented.
People across the country that what happened here was a classic example of old-fashioned union busting. I was told by David Robinson at CAUT that he cannot remember in this century an example of a university that simply refused to talk for 3 weeks. That it's going to be an extremely heavy task to try and repair the damage. And the damage is not 6 weeks old. The damage is many years old.
I think that it was very frustrating as a student to be part of this strike in a way, because we have no, formal power at the bargaining table to influence the decision to be made either way, as it should be. But to be held in sort of limbo for almost 6 weeks was definitely very difficult.
In a statement to Bridge City News, the University of Lethbridge says, "We understand relationships with faculty members were strained during the strike and are committed to mending them over time. Our new collective agreement with ULFA is an important first step. It offers fair and reasonable raises and benefits to our colleagues, while ensuring access to high-quality education and protecting the university's long-term sustainability." For Bridge City News, I'm Nathan Ryder.
The Alberta government announced a unique new partnership with the Lethbridge Police Service and the Blood Tribe Police. Those who are battling addiction now have access to addiction treatment once they are arrested. Alberta's virtual dependency program says that anyone who is taken into custody in Lethbridge or on the Blood Tribe will be able to access an addiction medicine physician. Lethbridge Chief of Police Shaheen Medizadeh says this is a voluntary program and officers can also implement it on the streets.
The next piece is also critical, because not only we can do it in our cell block, we can actually do it from our officers on the street, and also our watch program, who can actually promote and encourage people to take advantage of this program. People don't need to be arrested for us to help them. to get them to that treatment they deserve. We can do it both when they're in our custody and also people we deal with on the street to get them to the right treatment programs they deserve.
The Alberta government says approximately 70% of opioid-related deaths in our province occur in private residences, often among those using opioids or other substances while alone. Lethbridge City Council unanimously approved the Lethbridge Fire Department to donate expired or surplus items to support the war in Ukraine. Life-cycled medical kits, expired disposable wound care items, and personal protective equipment will be shipped off to help Ukrainian first responders. The Lethbridge Chief of Fire and Emergency Services, Greg Adair, says the items will be sent to Calgary first.
We will then be joining the group out of Calgary who's shipping it to Toronto at their cost and through their donations from Toronto. It's picked up through the Ukraine group in Toronto and sent on, I believe it's Merrick Transportation, which will take 2 days to actually reach the front lines in Ukraine. We're not part of any of that, but we weren't asked for any money or funding to actually transport that. That would all be taken care of through this individual who's organizing it.
Adair says there's no cost for the listed items as they have no operational or marketplace value. Well, with gas prices soaring, the amount of people turning to public transit in the city of Lethbridge has also seen a significant increase. The city says they've seen a 26% increase in ridership. Tim Sanderson, the general manager of Lethbridge Transit, says the trend is not just here, but just about everywhere.
Because we're comparing the first 3 months of this year to the last 3 months of this year. So is every one of those percentages point directly attributable to gas prices? Again, I don't think anybody could say that, but it is a very definite trend. As when gas prices started going up, we started seeing this increase in ridership. And this is also a pattern that we've been seeing not just across Alberta, but really across North America.
The current fares for Lethbridge Transit are $3 per ride or $77 for a monthly pass. Well, right after this short break, we hear from Michelle Sterling from Friends of Science. Stay with us.